Quran, Surah 74, Al-Muddaththir, the Cloaked One, Part 1. O you covered up in your clothes, arise and warn all. Revere your Lord alone, purify your garments, continue to shun idols. Do not do a favor expecting more in return, and persevere for the sake of your Lord. For when the trumpet will be sounded, that will truly be a difficult day, far from easy for the disbelievers. And leave to me, O prophet, the one I created all by myself, and granted him abundant wealth, and children always by his side, and made life very easy for him. Yet he is hungry for more. But no, he has been truly stubborn with our revelations. I will make his fate unbearable, for he contemplated and determined a degrading label for the Quran. May he be condemned. How evil was what he determined. May he be condemned even more. How evil was what he determined. Then he re-contemplated in frustration, then frowned and scowled, then turned his back on the truth and acted arrogantly, saying, "This Quran is nothing but magic from the ancients. This is no more than the words of a man. That soon I will burn him in hell. And what will make you realize what hell is? It does not let anyone live or die, scorching this skin. It is overseen by 19 keepers. We have appointed only stern angels as wardens of the fire, and we have made their number only as a test for the disbelievers, so that the people of the book will be certain, and the believers will increase in faith. And neither the people of the book nor the believers will have any doubts, and so that those hypocrites with sickness in their hearts and the disbelievers will argue, what does Allah mean by such a number? In this way, Allah leaves whoever He wills to stray and guide whoever He wills. And none knows the forces of your Lord except He. And this description of hell is only a reminder to humanity. But know, by the moon and the night as it retreats, and the day as it breaks, surely hell is one of the mightiest catastrophes, a warning to humankind, to whichever of you chooses to take the lead or lag behind. Every soul will be detained for what it has done, except the people of the right, who will be in gardens asking one another about the wicked, who will then be asked, what has landed you in hell? They will reply, we were not of those who prayed, nor did we feed the poor. We used to indulge in falsehood along with others, and deny the day of judgment, until the inevitable came to us. So the pleas of intercessors will be of no benefit to them. Now, what is the matter with them that they are turning away from the reminder, as if they were spooked zebras fleeing from a lion? In fact, each one of them wishes to be given a personal letter from Allah for all to read. But no, in fact, they do not fear the hereafter. Enough. Surely this Quran is a reminder, so let whoever wills be mindful of it. But they cannot do so unless Allah wills. He alone is worthy to be feared and entitled to forgive. And now the Arabic is recited by Saad Al-Ghamdi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها المدثر قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر والرجز فاهجر ولا تمنن تستكثر ولربك فاصبر فإذا نقر في الناقور فذلك يومئذ يوم عسير على الكافرين غير يسير ذرني ومن خلقت وحيدا وجعلت له مالا ممدودا وبنين شهودا ومهدت له تمهيدا ثم يطمع أن أزيد كلا إنه كان لآياتنا عنيدا سأرهقه صعودا إنه فكر وقدر فقتل كيف قدر ثم قتل كيف قدر ثم نظر ثم عبس وبسر ثم أدبر واستكبر فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر إن هذا إلا قول البشر سأصليه سقر وما أدراك ما سقر لا تبقي ولا تذر لواحة للبشر عليها 19 وما جعلنا أصحاب النار إلا ملائكة وما جعلنا عدتهم إلا فتنة للذين كفروا ليستيقن الذين أوتوا الكتاب ويزداد الذين آمنوا إيمانا ولا يرتاب الذين أوتوا الكتاب والمؤمنون وليقول الذين في قلوبهم مرض والكافرون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا كذلك يضل الله من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء وما يعلم جنود ربك إلا هو وما هي إلا ذكرى للبشر كلا والقمر والليل إذ أدبر والصبح إذا أسفر إنها لإحدى الكبر نذيرا للبشر لمن شاء منكم أن يتقدم أو يتأخر كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة إلا أصحاب اليمين في جنات يتساءلون عن المجرمين ما سلككم في سقر قالوا لم نك من المصلين ولم نك نطعم المسكين وكنا نخوض مع الخائضين وكنا نكذب بيوم الدين حتى أتانا اليقين فما تنفعهم شفاعة الشافعين فما لهم عن التذكرة معرضين كأنهم حمر مستنفرة فرت من قسورة بل يريد كل امرئ منهم أن يؤتى صحفا منشرة كلا بل لا يخافون الآخرة كلا إنه تذكرة فمن شاء ذكره وما يذكرون إلا أن يشاء الله هو أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة.
This is considered the second surah of the Quran, the second revelation to Muhammad after Surah 96. It followed a long gap after the initial encounter between Muhammad and the mysterious force in the cave, and that gap is said to be anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. And what followed in this surah has an interesting structure. Now, the rhyme scheme is pretty normal. You have strings of lines that rhyme with each other, but there is one massive ayat, or line, that's in the middle that accounts for about a third of the entire 56-line surah. And yes, that 100 plus word line, it does rhyme with the other lines around it. So I suppose rhyme is rhyme, no matter how many words come before it. So it works with the rhyme, but obviously puts one heck of a dent in the meter. This surah tells Muhammad to persevere, to address the skeptics, and promising that the most malicious among them will actually be going to hell. And we also have the first descriptions of hell, and some fun with the number 19, an emphasis on the reality of the day of judgment and the hereafter. Now, this surah is called Al-Muddaththir, the cloaked one, or the wrapped one. The subject of the title is actually Muhammad himself. He is the cloaked one, the wrapped up one. Now, I think this refers to Muhammad's habit at the time of covering himself up and wrapping himself in blankets when he thought a revelation was coming. If you remember, after the first revelation, he was shivering and covered in blankets, and it seems he was trying to kind of get ahead of these things as these revelations would continue or were expected to continue in the future. Al-Muddaththir comes from dathara, the root dal, tha, ra. That's D-T-H-R. This verb means to be forgotten, among other things, which is precisely what Muhammad may have been feeling at the time. Not just forgotten, but dealing with, it seems, a whole number of unnamed critics. And in this surah, right from the start, God basically absolves Muhammad of responsibility for dealing with his critics. Now, this would change eventually, of course. Like once his critics tried to kill him, that was different. And later on, when he grows more powerful, and as some history suggests, he probably had some of his critics killed. That's a historical dispute for another day. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the directive he's being given right now. But for now, God is giving a clear directive. Let me take care of them. That's the meaning of line 11, which says, "And leave to me, O prophet, the one I created all by myself." So here it is clear. Punishment for disbelief, however you may want to define disbelief, we'll get to that in a bit, that punishment is going to be in the hereafter. And it's not for humans to administer. Now, only God may deal with those who deny the truth, which makes a lot of sense, because only God knows a person's heart. God knows who believes what, and for the reason that that person believes whatever he or she believes, and whether a person is sincerely mistaken, or maybe they're just so filled with hate and malice they can't even see their own hand in front of their face. Those are two wildly different situations, and probably situations that only God is qualified to judge. And it is at this point, the line before, line 11, actually, that we see this somewhat complicated term, kafir, used for the first time here. In this case, al-kafurina. Now, this is often translated as unbelievers or infidels. And in later times, this would be described broadly and bluntly to simply describe non-Muslims. It's kind of a harsher term of something like Gentile or Goyim, that Jews use to describe non-Jews. And kafir can still be used like that in the popular modern sense. This isn't something that's just buried in the past. You still see this. And, this sort of pejorative form, that's what the word became. But a deeper meaning of this term exists. And that deeper meaning is how it would have been understood at the current time, when this surah came out. And you'll see a variation of this term also in line 31, where sincere Christians and Jews are put in the Muslim category, and the kafir are put in the non-Muslim hellbound category. And so it's not quite as simple as it seems, and definitely not quite as simple as it is presented in the modern world. Kafir does not just mean non-Muslim. Now, it means unbeliever, yes, but that's overly broad. It's too simplistic. Now, a better term, when you see this word, is someone who denies the truth. And it's even more than that, actually. It's the people being described in this surah. It's a very specific kind of unbelief. This isn't just unbelief or skepticism or something like that. Kafir is, and was at the time that the Quran first used this term, someone who denies or refuses to acknowledge the truth. Now, this is not someone looking at a car from a mile away and saying, I think that car is red. No, this is someone standing right next to the car and someone who knows dang well what color that car is, and yet intentionally refuses to acknowledge the plain truth in front of him. That car is red. Now, this would be a person rendered colorblind, so to speak, by his diseased soul. Or, to use a better analogy, nothing against colorblind people, I actually have many in my family, is someone who puts on blinders or, say, green-colored glasses just to make absolutely sure that he does not see that the car is red, because he either knows or deeply suspects that the car is red, and yet does whatever is required to make sure that he won't see that the car is indeed red. There's always an element of malice in a kafir. In the more abstract sense, the verbal root kfr, where this comes from, it has an element of covering something. Now, this term is used, credit to Muhammad Assad on this one, in Surah 57, verse 20, to describe a tiller or planter of the soil. That's someone who takes a seed and buries it. So think of the metaphor there. Covering something up completely and burying it, like an obvious truth, just burying it. There is a concealing and a denying present in this term. There is an intentionality. You know the truth, but will not acknowledge it. Someone rejects what is true, knowing that it is true. And just to drive this point home, clarifying this critical distinction very early in the Quran, there are some verses to explain the natures of a kafir. Look at lines 18 to 25. For he contemplated and determined a degrading label for the Quran. May he be condemned. How evil was what he determined. May he be condemned even more. How evil was what he determined. Then he re-contemplated in frustration, then frowned and scowled, then turned his back on the truth and acted arrogantly, saying, This Quran is nothing but magic from the ancients. This is no more than the word of a man. You may want to listen to that a few times, maybe read it a few times. This isn't just a list of grievances or just mere hints that someone might be a kafir. It's a sequence. It's a mental sequence, taking us into the head of the process of a kafir. He hears the truth and makes fun of it, denigrates it, locking himself into holding a permanent position right from the outset. Now, especially for someone with a big ego or an inflated and fragile ego. You may know someone like this, someone who has to be right all the time, no matter what. This is a particular trap for someone like that, because that initial decision cannot be changed without great pain to the psyche, to the ego, maybe even to the body. So this person has made a decision, and that decision has to be permanent. It can't be changed without complete self-collapse. And then time goes on, and then a light goes on. We have a glimmer of hope. And perhaps this person says for a moment, "Oh, wait, I get it now." And at this moment, this crucial moment, the recontemplation described in line 21, this moment is what can determine this person's afterlife. And in this moment, the moment you see a brief glimpse of the truth, does this person choose the truth or does he choose his ego? The truth or his fragile sense of self? God or his pride? This person chose himself. He frowned and scowled and turned his back on the truth. Arrogantly, deliberately. That's a key part of this. When you see the term unbeliever from here on out, always remember that part. This is often lost on Muslims just as much as it's lost, on those looking at this from the outside. And it is this self-deception and arrogance that leads this person to say, here we have lines 24 and 25, saying, "This Quran is nothing but magic from the ancients. This is no more than the word of a man." Now, this is very different than someone following a different process. Say, someone who dives in with an open mind and comes to the honest conclusion that, I don't think this is what the Muslims think it is. Or say the Jew in Medina who says, "Hey, I just don't think there's enough here to override thousands of years of tradition. I honestly don't think God would want me to follow this new religion." Or if you really want to run with it, you could apply the same process to the Jew who said the same thing 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem. This is a distinction that can get so easily lost and is, frankly, almost always lost when talking about religion. It's similar to the difference between some of the Pharisees that Jesus argued with, and then other Pharisees who were wrong, but for, at least in my opinion, justifiable reasons. Even among the temple authorities, I'm sure there were some who were open to Jesus and what was happening, but it was the kafir who shut them down, who were determined to kill Jesus. And their mental process would have been similar to what the Quran is describing here. They gave Jesus some nasty label right off the bat, then kind of thought about it a little. And then came the moment, the critical moment I was talking about before. Hey, maybe, let me think of, wow, I think, wait, no. This man, I'm sure now, is using the devil's magic, but he is nothing more than a man. That process is so important. The motivation behind it is so important. So if you have this situation that creates a kafir, arguably this happened 2,000 years ago, and that arrogance, that blindness, it made them complicit in killing God himself. And it's easily the biggest mistake anyone has ever made in the history of the world. And I assume the process is actually quite similar to what's being described in this surah. Judas knew the enormity of what he did, and he killed himself. But what about the kafir who hired Judas? I think they were just fine with it. These are hardened hearts. You'll see this throughout religious literature, in the Bible, in the Quran. These would be people with hardened hearts. A man with a hardened heart is a kafir. who isn't going to acknowledge the truth even when it's right in front of him and even when his own mind understands that it's the truth. All right, that's heavy stuff. But we'll move on. And actually that's pretty much the end of part 1 here. We've covered roughly the first half of the surah, and it's just going to have to be a two-parter. There's just way too much here. And it is a long surah. So next time we'll expand on this idea because you will see similar things regarding unrighteous actions to religious truth later in the surah as well. And we will definitely be going over verse 31, all 100 plus words of verse 31, and particularly what it says about the relationship between Christians and Muslims. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next time. Inshallah.